Welcome back, everyone. The iPhone XS and the iPhone XR were iPhones that came out back in 2018, and it was actually kind of interesting because I wasn't a fan of the XR, but I wasn't really a fan of the XS when they first came out. But I will tell you, the XR has grown on me, and these two phones are sitting at very interesting price points. The iPhone XR you can pick up for around 200 and something dollars in the used market. The iPhone XS is still around 300 something, which is actually a pretty good value for the iPhone XS in my opinion. So let's go and see how both these phones compare in 2022. If you want to pick up either of those phones up, I will leave links in the description. You can get them from there and help support the channel at the same time. Now, side by side, the XR is still the bigger phone here. You have a 6.1-inch IPS panel on the front of this phone, and overall, I still think it looks pretty decent. You do have thicker bezels on this device than the other ones, the notch up top, which is still the same on all these other devices, but this is an IPS panel. It is not an OLED panel. A lot of people, including me, I prefer something like an OLED panel, but this IPS panel is still okay. It's starting to show its age a little bit, especially at lower light levels, but I think it's okay for the most part. On the iPhone XS, on the other hand, you do have a 5.8-inch OLED panel, so this is definitely a much better panel than something like the iPhone XR. Is it miles better? To be honest, it is quite a bit heavier. I don't think it's like miles better, maybe per se, but it's a really good looking panel. And I think this is even an aftermarket panel, and even this one looks better than this one. So definitely when it comes down to it, huge thumbs up for the XS. This panel still looks pretty good. The XR could look better, but it was a budget phone back in 2018, so it's understandable. In terms of thinness and thickness, they're both kind of thick phones. I think the XR maybe, actually, I don't know. I used to think the XR was thicker, but they both kind of give me the same impression now, which is kind of funny. The stainless steel band on the iPhone XS feels really premium though. On the back, we do have glass backs on both, but I do have a skin on my iPhone XS because this one was heavily cracked. And with something like the iPhone XR, glass back again, no frosted glass backs in either one of these, but you did have a dual camera setup on the iPhone XS, which was actually really cool. The iPhone XR, on the other hand, had a single wide-angle lens, so keep that in mind as well. Both kind of realistically, almost kind of the same thing, but they're, the XR was a bigger phone overall, as you guys can tell. So in terms of that, that kind of covers it up on the outside. Now, in terms of software longevity, this is probably the more boring part behind these phones. They are going to be lasting realistically the same exact time. They came out the same exact time. The iPhone XR has one less gigabyte of RAM than the iPhone XS, but I don't think that's going to change the software longevity. Realistically, both these phones are going to last exactly the same amount of time. So 3 years from now, whenever these iPhones stop getting support, when the iPhone XS stops getting support, the iPhone XR is not going to get support anymore, and vice versa. So when it comes down to that, definitely a more boring aspect, but these phones are still going to be supported for quite a few years, so I cannot wait for that either. So now let's go and do a speed comparison between both these phones. They're both on iOS 15.4.1 right now. The iPhone XS has that Apple A12 Bionic chip inside of it with 4 gigabytes of RAM, while the iPhone XR has that Apple A12 Bionic chip inside of it with 3 gigabytes of RAM. So let's go ahead and see which one is the faster one between both of these. Okay, there we go. All the apps are cleared out in the background except for this one. So let's get into it. I will increase the brightness here. So let's get into it. Hopefully you can see it over the display. Let's do phone calls, 3, 2, 1. And roughly around the same thing. Let's do music, 3, 2, 1. Both are the same panels. I don't understand why sometimes we get this panel on here and sometimes we get it on there. So very, very weird. Let's do iTunes Store, 3, 2, 1. And XS was actually faster there. The iPhone XR a little bit behind. Let's do App Stores, 3, 2, 1. And the iPhone XS again is faster, followed by the iPhone XR. Very interesting that the XS was substantially faster there. Scrolling through here, we can kind of see the same thing too. Let's click into here. And the XS was faster. Realistically, these phones shouldn't be faster or slower than one another, but sometimes I guess that could happen. Clock, 3, 2, 1. About the same thing too. Mail, 3, 2, 1. XS again was the faster one there. Let's go and do photos, 3, 2, 1. A little bit of a glitch on the iPhone XS, but I still think they open it up about the same. Getting into here, let's see if there's difference, and I don't think there's going to be a difference here. Hopping out of there, let's do camera, 3, 2, 1. About the same thing too, not that big of a difference. Stocks, 3, 2, 1. A glitch on the iPhone XR, as you guys could tell, but it did load up faster. I guess we loaded up in a different panel here, which is totally understandable. Let's go and load up some of these third-party applications that I have on both these devices. Let's do Quizlet, 3, 2, 1. XS again is faster, XR behind. Dropbox, 3, 2, 1. Again, iPhone XS is faster. Let's go and do Snapchat, 3, 2, 1. XS again is the faster one, followed by the XR. Let's go and do Facebook, 3, 2, 1. XS again is the faster one. This is very crazy. Twitter, 3, 2, 1. Actually, it's not crazy. This one should theoretically be faster, but I wasn't expecting this big of a difference. Like, it is substantially faster. Stack, 3, 2, 1. You can see again, 10s was faster here, which is very interesting. Like I mentioned, I wasn't expecting the 10s to be faster overall. I was expecting it to be kind of, I guess, flip-flopping. Sometimes the 10R is faster, sometimes the 10s is faster. But every single time there was a device faster, it was the iPhone 10s so far. Thank you. 3, 2, 1. 10s again is the faster one, followed by the iPhone 10R. Snake versus blocks. 3, 2, 1. Oh, I totally messed that one up. But we'll just load it up in the background to keep the, I guess, the things the same. And we'll just keep that one, whatever. Netflix, 3, 2, 1. 10s again is the faster one. And we can just end it off with Temple Run 2 here. 3, 2, 1. So I can definitely tell you from testing. So this one was interesting. The 10s actually crashed that application where it doesn't look like the 10R will crash. So weirdly enough, I mean, maybe a little bit of an edge to the 10R. Just kidding. The 10s is definitely the faster iPhone here, which is expected in my opinion, which actually wasn't expected. I was expecting the iPhone 10R to probably be faster in some cases and then sometimes the 10s, but I wasn't expecting the 10s to be faster every single time. So that was very, very interesting. So in terms of the speed, definitely for the iPhone 10s. Now let's kind of quickly hit on the cameras. On the back, the iPhone 10s had a dual camera setup, a 12 megapixel wide and a 12 megapixel telephoto lens, where the iPhone 10R had a single 12 megapixel wide angle lens, 4K at 60 on the back, 1080p at 60 on the front of both of these. Now, the iPhone 10R's camera, to be honest, when it first came out, I was very, very weirded out by it. I didn't like that single, camera lens, but Apple did end up bringing that ultra-wide sensor to the next generation, so that was really nice. I think something with the 10R sits at a decent spot. Neither of these phones have ultra-wide sensors, and that's one of my favorite lenses, to be honest. I love having all three, but still, I think the 10R is good. You do have like video mode. You still have, portrait mode and all this stuff, 4K at 60. But compared to the phones we have nowadays with cinematic mode and even 8K, both these phones are starting to show their ages, to be honest. With the iPhone XS, as I mentioned before, it could be worse. I do like having that, telephoto lens to zoom in a lot, and having portrait mode, just like the iPhone XS, is really good as well. I think this camera is still pretty good for this day and age. I compared it to the iPhones 13s and 12s and even the iPhone 11s, and this camera was a very good camera at that point. Was it perfect? No, we didn't have 4K at 60 on the front, and that's probably the thing that is kind of the biggest lackluster feature on both these. No 4K at 60, no 4K at 60 on the front, and no ultra-wide sensors. Kind of annoying, but it is what it is. And to kind of end off this video, and to be completely honest, I would probably say that the iPhone XS, if you have the money, the XS is probably the better phone here. I think this phone has more capability and more quality for sure. I think the iPhone XR may be a better value per dollar. If you can get this for substantially cheaper than you can get an iPhone XS, then I would say go for it. But I do think with the iPhone XR, it still has quite a bit of capability within it. It's not going anywhere anytime soon, and this is still several years later one of my favorite iPhones to talk about because it is substantially cheaper than a lot of the newer iPhones, but it doesn't feel like a super outdated iPhone. With the iPhone XS, this is probably one of those devices. If it wasn't for the weird battery life at first, this iPhone is probably still one of the iPhones I would recommend to more people. I think the XR has better battery life as a whole, but the iPhone XS is still a really interesting device, and I would still recommend you guys to pick it up too. So when it comes down to both these, get the XS if you can, if you have the money. If not, the iPhone XR is still a very, very good iPhone, and it holds up really well to today's competition. So that kind of covers it. If you have any other questions or anything, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that'll mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.